Right, good morning, everyone. We are back to Shmuel Bet. And what I want to do today is to finish the chapter and then go back and, as promised, look at two things. I want to look at the comparison of the David and Bathsheba story with the Yehuda and Tamar story. And I then want to go to two Gemaras to discuss the how the Gemara looks at David's behavior, and in so doing, we will see the thing that Hannah mentioned a couple of weeks back, which is the idea that Uriah was chayav mita. He was liable to the death penalty for being a rebellion against the king. I think you probably gathered from what I said previously that I am not very impressed with that Gemara, all that approach. But we'll do that second. We'll do that third. First of all, we're going to finish the chapter. There's a few psukim. And then we're going to look at the Yehuda Tamar situation. So let's share the screen to start with. There we go. Shmuel Bet chapter 11. We left off over here at verse 22. Let's just recap before we go on. David sends a message with Uriah himself to Yoav, saying, send Uriah to the most dangerous part of the battle and then abandon him there so that he will be killed. Yoav does not follow instructions. That's not what he does. What does he do? Can anyone remember what he actually did?
He sent him with a whole lot of soldiers.
Yeah, where did he send them to?
To the wall.
To the wall.
To the walls, yeah, the walls of the city. Yeah. And the archers on the top of the wall killed him.
Killed him.
Amongst others, yes. Killed him amongst others, which is an important point. And then what happened was that Yoav sends this messenger to David with a somewhat cryptic message at first. And he says to the messenger, David is going to get angry and he's going to say, why did you go close to the wall, you idiot? Don't you remember Avimelech, who got killed by the millstone, chucked down by the woman? We did that at the end of last week's shiur. And you are to say back to him, in response to that, your servant Uriah is dead. Now, if you're the messenger and you get that message to give to David from Yoav, what would you understand by that?
Economical with the truth?
Yeah, you'd know, wouldn't you, that this whole thing was a ruse to get Uriah killed. In other words, the cat's out of the bag.
Or you would have the idea that maybe Uriah was somebody special to the king because out of all the people that died, he's pointing out that Uriah is dead. And that's like when Avshalom was killed. And he says, and David says, don't tell me that he's dead. Yeah, it's like he's somebody special.
I get that. Yeah, no, that's fair. It could be interpreted like that. Yeah. Yeah.
You and I seem to see things from opposite ends at times.
Yeah, but I acknowledge that it could be seen like that, definitely. However, apart from the fact that we've got a big dollop of hindsight because we know that Uriah was only special to David in as much as he wanted to get rid of him. Jackie's arrived. That's good.
But they weren't friends. Uriah and David were not They weren't friends. I thought there was a friendship between them.
Well, Uriah was very loyal to David.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
would seem. It would
Yeah.
seem. We're going to go. We're going to go and look at that later on.
Yeah.
So as we do have a dollop of hindsight, I accept that. But there is also a further point, and that is that later on in Malachim, when David's on his deathbed, well, let's have a look at it, shall we? It's Malachim Aleph, chapter 2, I think. Hang on a second. Chapter 2, I think. Chapter 2, yeah, let me just get that up on the screen. Malachim Aleph, chapter 2. So, over here, verse 5. This is David on his deathbed speaking to Shlomo. We did this a little bit last time. Moreover, you also know that Yoav, the son of Tzeruiah, did to me. You also know what he did to me. What did Yoav do to David? And then he says, and he killed the captains of the host. He killed Avner, we know about that. And he killed Amasa, we know about that. But the Mefarshim pick up on this word li, what he did to me, because it doesn't really make sense. The pasuk would make more sense if it said, moreover, you also know that what Yoav, the son of Tzeruiah, did. He killed the two captains of the host of Israel. But it says what he did to me. And the Mefarshim say that what Yoav did was that after the battle that we've just described, in which Uriah was killed, all of the soldiers came, the surviving soldiers, came to Yoav and said, similar to what Yoav said that David would say, that was a very silly thing to do. Why did you go so close to the wall? You know, that was a bad tactic to do. And the Mefarshim say that when they approached him, what Yoav did was that he showed them David's letter that said, get Uriah killed. And that this is obviously midrashic fill-in, because we're not told any of this explicitly. But Chazal say that when David says, you know what he did to me, that's what he's referring to. That Yoav did not keep that confidence of David. He told everybody what David had told him to do in order to save his own skin. Not so sure I blame him really, but that's what he did apparently. And so, if that's the case, that he showed the soldiers the letter, then Hannah, you would have to then say that the messenger would know, because he's been shown that he knows the situation. And when he says Uriah is dead, he's reporting back to David what he already knows, which is that David wanted Uriah killed.
In defense of Yoav, David didn't write in the message, and don't tell anybody.
That's true. That's true. But I think that's probably stretching it a bit. Okay, fine. So anyway, where were we? Shmuel Aleph, yes. So that's where we were up to. The messenger comes back, and so that's what he's told to say. Right, this is where we got up to. Verse 22. Vayelech hamalach, the messenger went, vayavo, and he came, vayaged leDavid et kol asher shalacho Yoav. And he came and he told everything to David that Yoav had told him to do. Vayom hamalach el David, and the messenger said to David, Ki gavru aleinu ha'anashim, when the men overcame us, vayetzu aleinu hasadeh, v'niyeh aleihem ad petech hasha'ah. We came out against them, and we chased them back to the entrance of the gate. This is even more sophisticated than Yoav had actually told the messenger to do. To say, it made the tactic look less bad. But nevertheless, Vayoru Hamorim El Avadecha Me'al HaChomah, the archers shot your servants from on top of the wall. Vayamutu me'avdei HaMelech v'gam avdecha Uriah Hachiti mate. Some of the king's servants died, and also Uriah the Hittite is dead. Now, what did Yoav predict David would do?
Wait.
He predicted that David would get cross and angry and say, why did you do that? Right? But the messenger preempted the situation by saying that Uriah was dead. Now, the only thing that David was interested in was Uriah's death. He wasn't interested in his other servant's death. One sec, Philip. Let me just finish this thought and I'll come to you. He wasn't interested in the other servant's death. He was only interested in Uriah being killed. And so the messenger was a rather clever fellow. He didn't wait as Yoav had instructed him. Yoav instructed him to tell him what had happened and only to say that Uriah was dead after David got angry. The messenger knew full well the story, either because he put two and two together from what he'd been told by Yoav, or because Yoav had shown the letter around, one or the other. But this messenger knew the story, and so he did not fancy getting a tongue lashing from David. And so what he did was, when he told the story and included Uriah's death in his first recollection of the story, rather than waiting for David to get angry. And he was quite right to do that, because if you look at David's response, what is David's response? He doesn't get angry. Verse 25. Sorry, before we go on to 25, Philip, you wanted to say something. You're muted. You're muted, Philip.
Okay, can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
What I am still perplexed after almost 80 years of life is perplexed about is how come that David didn't get a punishment? According to what I'm listening to and what I hear, he was chayav misa. I cannot understand what all these polemics are about.
Wait. We're going to come to the Gemara in Shabbat 56a, which discusses the whole thing about David's sin and his punishment. So just hang on, and I guarantee you will be no more satisfied at the end of the. No, you'll be wiser, but you'll be no more satisfied with the answer when we've learned the Gemara. But nevertheless, we will learn the Gemara and see what you think. So just hang on to that.
Right.
So David does not get angry. And he says, Vayomer David ala malach, ko tomar el Yoav. Go back to Yoav, and this is what you should say to him. Al yeira ba'einecha et hadavar hazeh. Don't let this thing displease you. Don't be upset by this thing. Ki chazo v'chazeh tochal hacherev. Because these are the kind of things that happen in war. These things happen. David is very sanguine about this whole thing that's gone on. Why? Because he's achieved what he wanted to achieve. Uriah is dead. And the fact that there was collateral damage doesn't seem to bother him one little bit. He just says it's one of those things. Kazova kazeh, that's it. These things happen in war.
David was kind of obsessed with Bathsheba, and the only thing that really mattered was getting Uriah to be killed, and everything else was kind of slight collateral damage. But
Yeah, It seems that way to
Johnny,
me,
I
Peter.
wanted to ask something. Every time Uriah is mentioned, it says Uriah the Hittite. As if, why does it have to keep saying that? Uriah was not Jewish, but was not.
Well, there's a machloket there.
Yeah.
Machloket. And we did actually mention this either last week or the week before. Why is he called the Hittite in the first place?
Yeah.
Could be, some say that he was in fact a Hittite and not a Jew.
Yeah.
We have got a bit of a problem with that because we know that Bathsheba went to the mikveh before she, while she was bathing. It says that she had cleansed herself from her impurity. It means she'd been to the mikveh. Why would she go to the mikveh if she was married to a non-Jew? So the Mefarshim say, some of them say, that he was a Jew who happened to live amongst the Hittites.
Yeah.
So in other words, you are, when you were in Glasgow, you were Peter Barclay the Jew. When you came to Israel, you were Peter Barclay the Scot.
Yeah.
Yeah. When somebody asks me who's Peter Barclay, I say, he's the Scottish guy. Right? The Scottish guy with a little beard.
I hope you correct him and say Berkeley and not Barclay.
Yeah. Okay, Berkeley. Yeah. Okay. So I say, he's the Scottish guy with a little beard, and he sits on the other side of the shul there, and but you're referred to as the Scottish guy because that helps you identify them. So what the Mefarshim are saying, that Uriah is there may have been other Uriahs. Okay, this particular Uriah is referred to as the Hittite. In the first instance, that's why it's called the Hittite, because either he wasn't Jewish, he was a Hittite, or he lived amongst the Hittites.
Yeah, okay.
He came from there. Why it keeps on repeating it is a good question. And I'd not thought of that, but I've thought of an answer which we see in Megillat Ruth. Anybody read my mind? What am I thinking about here?
Ish Yemini,
Ruth is described as Ruth
Moabiyah.
Hamoaviyah.
The Moabitess.
Hamoaviyah. Ruth is called Hamoaviyah on more than one occasion. She's repeatedly called Ruth Hamoaviyah. And the Mefarshim pick up on that. And what they say is this, that the people who call her Ruth HaMoaviyah, who refer to her as Ruth HaMoaviyah, are doing so in order to be disparaging. Ruth the Shiksa. Because they don't want to accept her into the people. And it could be that the Tanakh is using that expression in a way that is trying to be disparaging towards Uriah. In that, he's only a goy at the end of the day. I know it's a horrible approach, but we do know, don't we, that there are various folk that have that approach, that, goyim are lesser beings than we are. And for the sake of clarification, I do not subscribe to that view. But it could well be that it's being used as a pejorative term.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's finish the chapter.
Johnny?
Yes, David.
If a woman is in a forbidden relationship, is she still required to keep the mitzvahs of Taras and Mishpacha?
I believe not. I believe not, but don't quote me on that until I check.
Wouldn't it be a double hit if she's having relationships if she's in a forbidden relationship and she is not keeping Taras Mishpacha?
Okay, let me ask you this question, David, and I'll tell you why I think I'm right.
Yeah,
I'm going to check it afterwards just to be sure. What is the Aveira of not keeping Taras and Mishpacha? Where does it say that a woman has an obligation to keep Taras HaMishpacha.
She'll have difficult childbirth.
It's on the man, isn't it?
Correct. David has got it. It's on the man. It is the man's Aveira. A man is not allowed to have relations with a woman Beshat Nidata, in the time of her Nidah. It's a bit like...
They're both Chayav Misa, Johnny. But both sides are Chayav Misa.
You're not Chayav Misa for
adultery?
No, we're not talking adultery. We're talking about Taras HaMishpacha. Nida. We're talking about relationships.
Okay, and one of the three things women die in childbirth from, according to the Mishnah?
It doesn't say that they were married to non-Jews.
No,
married to Jews.
For not keeping Taras HaMishpacha.
Yeah, but there's the point that one second. Wait. We've got to get this point straight. The point that I'm making is there is no obligation on a woman. Okay, let me put it this way for you. A woman who is not involved in any relationship at all, so she's not having sexual relations, doesn't need to go to the mikveh, right? Why does she need to go to the mikveh? In order that her husband is not over the Aveira of having relations with a woman who has not been to the mikveh. So if her husband isn't Jewish, he doesn't have that obligation. So therefore, she would have no reason to go to the mikveh.
Okay, and
it's a bit like one sec, David. It's a bit like the contraceptive thing, right? Many times over my career as a doctor, I had to advise couples on the best, halachically best way of using contraception. Okay, and what's clear from halacha is that the isur of contraception is on the man, not on the woman, right? Of shifchas zera, of spilling seed incorrectly is on the man. So therefore, if there is a choice between a man using some form of contraception like a condom, or a woman using some form of contraception like the pill or the coil or whatever it is that they choose, then it is always preferable halachically, not necessarily medically, but halachically, it is always preferable for the woman, because there is no isur on the woman. There is no, and the same on pru'uruvu. There is no mitzvah on the woman. Granted, at least for the time being anyway, we can't do the mitzvah without a woman. But the mitzvah of pru'uruvu, of procreation, falls on the man. This is the same thing. The aveira of nida is on the man. And so therefore, if Bathsheba was married to a Hittite who was not Jewish, there would be no reason for her to go to the mikveh. And therefore, the fact that she did go to the mikveh, the rabbis use as a proof, inverted commas, that Uriah must have been Jewish, and he was called Uriah the Hittite because he was like Berkeley the Scot. Yeah.
Johnny, in Friday night, though, when we say what we say a man extinguishes the lamp to save from heathen robbers or whatever. But the next paragraph, it then switches to a woman and says, for 3 transgressions, women die in childbirth. It switches to the woman. Yeah,
but that's talking about a woman who's married to a Jewish man, not a woman who's married to a non-Jewish man.
And then what did happen? Bathsheba lost the baby in childbirth, didn't she?
She did lose a baby. Yeah, she did, though. Well, the baby died. She didn't die. The baby died. We'll come to that in the next chapter. So, yes, Michael's pulling a face. Why are you pulling a face, Michael?
Even though she wasn't obligated, if he was a Hittite and he wasn't Jewish, she wasn't obligated to go to the mikveh, but she might have decided to go anyway.
She might have done, but the rabbis indicate that the fact that she went is an indication that she needed to go, not that she wanted to go.
As you said,
okay. An interesting question, though. How did we get onto that?
Why he's called Uriah the Hittite.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Why he's called the
Yeah.
Hittite. Yes, thank you, David. Right. So he's called the Hittite because he was either a Hittite or because he was a Jew that lived amongst them. And it's a machloket amongst the Meforshim.
Okay, Johnny, can you look
yes,
up?
oh, yes, David, you wanted to say something. Sorry.
Look at Vayikra, chapter 20, verse 18.
Vayikra, chapter 20, verse 18. There we go.
So if both parties are Chayiv Kores.
איש אשר ישכב את אישה דבר וגילה את ערוותה ואת מקור הערווה והיא גילתה את מקור הדמה ונכרתו שניהם מקרב עמם. Okay, but again, that's talking about a Jewish man. You can't be you can't be mechayev a goy kores for that. He's only got a mitzvah of Sheva, mitzvah of Bnei Noach.
Okay, but she would be.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. Maybe. I'll look it up.
That's definitely the source of both parties being chayav.
Yeah, but this has to be talking
regular marriage.
Yeah, this has to be talking about a regular marriage. I will look it up after the shiur, and I will send a message on the Shmuel Bet group as to the outcome of my investigations.
Karet is not death.
Karet is not death. That's true. But what David's point is,
it's a higher punishment than the death penalty.
In some ways, yes.
It's the same as eating on Yom Kippur and eating chametz on Pesach.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a serious business. I'll look it up. I know a man who knows the answer to this question, but I can't just quite ring him right at this moment because we're in the middle of the shiur. But I'll report back onto my investigation. Okay. Yes, let's carry on. So he says, don't worry about it. These things happen in war, says David. Right? Hachazek milchamtecha ela'ir v'harsa v'chazkehu. Just go again, strengthen your battle and destroy it. V'chazkehu, and encourage him. He says to the messenger, that's to the messenger, go and encourage Yoav. Go and tell Yoav that David's not cross with him. David's sending him encouragement. And now, of course, David doesn't know that Yoav, at this stage anyway, doesn't know that Yoav's let the cat out of the bag, that everyone knows what this was all about. Only later on does that come. And therefore we get this idea of here in Malachim, you know that which Yoav, the son of Tzeruiah, did to me. And the Mefarshim say that is the Yoav spilling the secret of what David was trying to do. Now, the end of the chapter is this.
Yes, 26.
26. Vatishma Eshet Uriah. And the wife of Uriah heard. Is that not a funny expression?
Yeah.
Why is that a funny expression?
Well, she wasn't told directly.
Well, okay. She got to know.
Yeah.
That wasn't what I was referring to. David was nodding. What's odd about that expression, David?
Well, in fact, she's not named.
Yeah, she's not named.
Yeah.
We know what her name is by now, and
Yeah.
we know her intimate details. We know her bathing routine. We certainly know her name, right? Why is she called Vatishma Eshet Uriah here? Why is Tanakh calling her the wife of Uriah?
Disparaging about her.
I think it is.
Not disparaging. On the contrary, it's pointing out that there's something very, very wrong here, and that's why they repeat her name. Although I don't think it's really her fault. I think it's David's fault.
Okay.
I think
We know that. We know that. We're coming to that.
Comment.
Okay. One
Comment.
sec. One sec, Hannah. Let's just see what we've got so far. Michael says it's disparaging to. Who are you meaning disparaging to, Michael?
About the wife.
About Bathsheba herself.
Otherwise, I would have named her if she wasn't. If she was totally innocent and everything else, I would have named her.
So we've discussed, haven't we, in previous weeks, that there is a little question mark over Bathsheba's behavior in the first place. What was she doing, bathing in public, etc., etc. Maybe this is a support for that. That this
Wait a
is.
minute, but she was bathing
Well,
on the
wait,
roof.
let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
Let me
I'm
finish.
joining in. What do you want?
That issue. Wait. So Michael's view is that's potentially disparaging to Bathsheba. Philip's got the opposite view and says that no, this is telling us that this was really the wife of Uriah, stressing the wife of Uriah every possible time in a way that makes it clear that David was very, very wrong. So Philip thinks that this is disparaging to David. Michael thinks it's disparaging to Bathsheba. Hannah, what have you got to say?
I think that it's pointing out that there wasn't a relationship, that because her loyalty is with her husband. She's Uriah's wife. She's not Bathsheba. She's not David's concubine. She's Uriah's wife.
Wow, that's interesting. Now, it never occurred to me, but I like that idea. That's
I told you we see things differently, you and I.
Yeah, we do, don't we? Vatishma Eshet Uriah, Hannah wants to say, and I like this, that actually this is not disparaging against Bathsheba. It's on the contrary. This is praising Bathsheba, that she was loyal to Uriah, and this would be a support for the opinion that says she was raped, which I think was Hannah's view right from the beginning. So it's consistent, and that she did not go willingly. Michael's not impressed, but
it would have said in that case, it would have said Bathsheba, Uriah's wife.
I'll tell you what I think, because I think something completely different. I think something completely different. We are going to learn a piece of Gemara shortly. Maybe not even today now, because we've got to do Yehuda and Tamar first. But we're going to learn a piece of Gemara, which is going to tell us the details of something we mentioned last time, which is the get lemafreya, the retrospective divorce bill. Remember, we spoke about that. Now, if it's the case that, and this is the case, I'll give you a spoiler on the Gemara. The Gemara's case is that David did not sin because, Philip, don't go screaming about this now, right? You have to wait until we get to the Gemara. But the Gemara is going to tell us that David did not sin because at the time of his relationship with Bathsheba, retrospectively, she had been divorced from Uriah. That divorce from Uriah became active at the time the get was written, once he was killed. Now, if that's the case, right, Philip, behave. If that's the case, right, then when she heard Vatishma, she was not the Eshet Uriah. She was not the wife of Uriah. She was divorced from him. And I think that the Tanakh is using Eshet Uriah here to tell us that Gemara is not right, and that she was that wife of Uriah, and that David did sin. Now that's a big statement on my behalf, because I'm going against the Gemara, but it's something which I think fits. So we've got at least 4 different views here of what this expression means, Vatishma Eshet Uriah. Okay, let's just summarize them. Michael thinks it's disparaging against Bathsheba because it doesn't name her, and she didn't behave as she should have done. Philip thinks it's disparaging against David because it's stressing that she was the wife. and that he took her against her will and against halacha. Hannah says, I've forgotten, don't tell me, Hannah, let me try and remember. Hannah says that she was loyal to Uriah, that she remained Uriah. She wasn't his David's concubine, she was Uriah's wife. And I'm saying that this is a hint to us that the get lemafreya, the retrospective divorce bill, was not something that we should take into account. Okay,
Johnny,
yes, Jackie, go ahead.
If she was divorced, why did she have to she said she mourned over her husband, why did she have to sit Sheva for him?
She doesn't say she sat Shiva, she says she mourned. She might not.
In the morning,
she can mourn with it, people mourn others without sitting Shiva. If you are close to somebody, I don't know, a brother-in-law or something. I don't know why I thought of that, but anyway, you maybe mourn his death, but you don't have to sit Shiva. Yes, Peter.
No, I was saying Yavor Ha'evel in the mourning period past suggests Shiva. And
it does, but it doesn't say that she was. There would have been a mourning period for somebody.
The last thing, which in the last sentence when it says was displeasing, marrying.
Okay, I'm coming to that.
Bathsheba was displeasing to God.
I'm coming to that. So, the wife of Uriah heard that he died, and she mourned over her husband. Vatispod al ba'ala. Now, whether she sat Shiva or not, it's a fair comment, Jackie. Either way, I think that supports Hannah, because Hannah's view, if you remember, was that she was loyal to Uriah all this time. And therefore, it's disparaging to David because it means that he took her against her will, which is what Hannah's view has been all along. Now, the fact that she mourned her husband, I think, is a support for that. So I think that the end of this pasuk is a support for Hannah's view. There you go, Hannah. I've come round to your way of thinking. Right, the last pasuk in the chapter, Vayavor ha'evel, and the mourning period passed. Oh, good for David. He waited until the Shiva was over. What a good fella, right? Vayishlach David, and again that word Vayishlach. Remember, that's our leitmotif in this chapter. David is sending other people doing his job for him. Vayishlach David sends. Vayasfah el beito, and he gathers her in to his household. Vatahi lo leisha, and she becomes his wife. Vateled lo ben, and she bears him a son. Vayera hadavar asher asa David be'inei Hashem. And the thing that David did was displeasing to Hashem. There is one other place in the entirety of Tanakh where this expression is found. Does anybody know where it is?
Tamar and Yehuda.
Very good, Jackie. How did you know that?
Because I read it a couple of weeks ago.
Well done. Okay, it's exactly where it is. I'm going to find you the pasuk right now. I've got it to hand. It's in Bereshit chapter 38. There we go. Verse 10. Vayera be'enei Hashem asher asa. Vayera Hashem be'enei Hashem. Okay, so there's obviously some kind of parallels. Let's see how many parallels between this story and the Tamar and Yehuda story we can find. Okay, I've got a list of them here. Let me just get my list. Right, here's my list. Right, off you go. How many parallels can we find?
Well,
right, one at a time. Hannah.
I can find a difference.
We'll come to differences at the end. Let's do similarities first and then differences.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Being a little bit cynical, Tamar basically seduced Yehuda, and Sheva, by her actions, seduced David.
Okay, all right, that's a possibility. Either way, there was an illicit sexual relationship. Okay, that's the first thing. David was not allowed to have relations with Bathsheba because she was married to Uriah, unless you believe the Gemara in Shabbat 56a. And Yehuda was not allowed to have relations with Tamar because she was his daughter-in-law. And she was also betrothed to Shelah, his son, even though she never actually got to marry him. So that's number one. There was an illicit sexual relationship. Okay. Second similarity.
You are pregnant.
They both conceived. Correct. They both conceived from that illicit relationship. That's number two. Number three, both situations, the man, i.e. Yehuda in his case and David in his case, issues a death sentence against somebody who doesn't deserve to die. Right? Uriah did not deserve to die, didn't do anything, except if you learn the Gemara, he did. But that's why I wanted to do the Gemara after this. All right? And Yehuda issues a death penalty against Tamar. Okay. So that's the third one. Next one. Both women inform the man that they are pregnant by indirectly. Bathsheba sends a message to David to say that she's pregnant. And Tamar does not say directly, but she says, I am pregnant to whoever this signet ring and cord and staff belong to. So that's another one. Now, eventually.
Wait a second. Can I make a point? And you probably won't like this one either, but what we're pointing out, and I was going to say similar to Michael, are differences.
And we're coming to the differences in a sec.
The differences are that with David and Bathsheba, David was the instigator, whereas with Yehuda and Tamar, Tamar was the instigator. Bathsheba did send a message to David that she was pregnant. Tamar didn't. She waited till people saw that she was pregnant and went to Yehuda and told him. David had Uriah killed, and in the story with Tamar and Yehuda, nobody died. Tamar didn't die. Yes, he said she should die, but she didn't. He rescinded that. So from where I stand, they look like differences more than similarities.
Okay, so one more similarity before we go on to the differences. That is that in the end, they both admit their guilt. Yehuda says, Tzadka mimeni, she is more righteous than I, and she is not put to death. At the end of the story of Bathsheba, Natan the prophet, we'll see it in the next chapter, Natan the prophet scolds David and tells him off and says, he's done wrong. And he says, Chatati, I have sinned. So eventually they both admit their guilt. There are many differences. We've heard some of them. Let's go through the differences now. The differences nobody got killed, as Hannah has said. Tamar was the instigator, yes, versus David being the instigator. And one very big difference is that we're told here in Bereshit, here, verse 26, Vayikar Yehuda recognized these items and realized, Vayomer tzadka mimeni, she is more righteous than I, ki al kain lo natatia l'sheila bani, I did not give her to Sheila my son, velo yasaf od ladata, he no longer continued to have relations with Tamar, which is a big difference to what David did.
There was one other difference, Johnny.
One sec, let's just do this first. And David could barely wait. He just waited until the end of Sheva, right? And he gathered her into his house. So that's a big difference as well. Yes, Jackie?
Tamar's baby lived, but Sheva's baby died.
More than that, Jackie. Tamar's baby became the great-grandfather of David himself.
Yeah, became a dynasty.
Yeah, became the dynasty. However, it's not quite that way, Jackie, because David's dynasty was continued through Bathsheba, because by Shlomo. So there is a difference and a similarity there. Now, I want to show you something which Michael will like. We know, don't we, that in various different places, people are called different things. Where am I referring to, Michael?
Oh, my usual place, yes.
Yes, Divrei Hayamim. Okay. Who would like to... well, first of all, let's just go back to Bereshit for a sec before I tell you this. Let's go to the beginning of this. Let's go to the beginning of this Yehuda and Tamar story, beginning of chapter 38. Verse 2, right at the beginning of this. Vayar Sham Yehuda. Yehuda saw in this place where he was, Bat Ish Knani. He saw them daughter of a Canaanite man, Ushmo Shua, and his name was Shua. Vayikacheha vayavo eleha, and he took her, and he came to her, he became his wife. So what was the name of Yehuda's wife?
We don't know.
Bathsheba.
Bathsheba, she was called. Does that sound a bit familiar to you?
A bit like Bathsheba.
A bit like Bathsheba. Okay, now I'm going to take you to Divrei Hayamim now and have a look on the screen there for you. Ve'ele noldu lo b'Yerushalayim. These were born to him in Yerushalayim, meaning David. Shim'ah v'Shovav v'Natan u'Shlomo. Those four boys were born to David in Yerushalayim. Arba'ah lebat Shua bat Amiel. In Divrei Hayamim, Bathsheba is referred to as Bathsheba. Coincidence, Michael? No, don't think so. And that's a great connection between the two stories. Bathsheba is called Bathsheba, who was actually the name of Yehuda's wife, before the whole Tamar story. Now, so what does it mean, these two stories? There's clearly these two stories are linked by their similarities, by their differences. There's certainly a connection. What is Tanakh trying to tell us by this connection? So, any ideas? What are we to make of it? What are we to make of this connection? Either the similarities or the differences. Tell me something that you have learned from these two stories being either similar or different?
There's a concept that sometimes God does great things by less than great means. In other words, David's dynasty continued through Shlomo through not so great means. It's a concept that I've heard expounded by certain rabbis.
And that's a good similarity, isn't it? Because Yehuda's behavior towards Tamar was not the greatest thing, but we got Peretz from it, from which we got the Davidic dynasty. David's behavior towards Bathsheba was clearly not what it should have been, and yet we got Shlomo. So that is true. So maybe that's something we can learn from both stories. All right, anything else? Well, I think that it's a seesaw. I think it's a.
I've got another one.
Well, let me just say this first.
The paradigm of Shuvah.
One sec. We're going to come to Shuvah at the end. Okay, coming to Shuvah at the end. I think there's a seesaw going on here. On the one hand, Jackie mentioned it. Nobody got killed in the Yehuda story. Yehuda intervened. David could have said that Tzadka Mimeni. He could have said that, Uriah was more righteous than me. He was loyal to me, and I was disloyal to him. But he didn't. He covered it up. Whereas Yehuda did not cover it up. So I think that reflects badly on David. On the other hand, this pasuk over here, where it says that he no longer continued to be intimate with her, what happened to Tamar after she gave birth to the twins? Was she given to Shelah as a husband?
No.
Was she treated as Yehuda's wife?
No.
Which technically she was. What happened to her?
We don't know.
We don't know. Presumably, she went back to her father's house and remained there as a widow, right? Because Yehuda, many people read this pasuk, he no longer continued to be intimate to her, as a positive thing for Yehuda, but it wasn't. It was a negative thing. As a wife is entitled to, we've been through this in the ketubah, haven't we? When you write your ketubah, you promise to give all the things that a Jewish husband should give, which is clothes, sustenance, and marital relations. So Yehuda failed on that. On the other hand, what did David do? And the Mefarshim pick up on our last pasuk here. Vaye'esfa el beito. He gathered her into his house. In other words, he didn't abandon her as a widow to Uriah on her own to bring to fend for herself. He took her in and he made her a wife. So the rabbis look on that as a positive thing to David. Again, it's a seesaw. It's a double-edged sword. You could look at it negatively. Let me finish. You could look at it negatively and say David couldn't wait to get his hands on her again, right? But the rabbis look at it in a different way and say that he was being kind and took her in. So I think, to me, what I learned from these two stories, by learning them side by side, and the fact that just on those three words, Vatishma Eshet Uriah, amongst our little group, we got at least 4 different opinions. What I think it shows is that it's very important to be able to look at things from various different sides and see the positive and the negative, because there's nobody who is perfect. not David HaMelech, and not Yehuda, and there is nobody who is all bad apart from those people who are all bad, like Hitler. We had this in the Shia yesterday, but apart from those rare individuals, nobody is all bad, and so it's an important thing to be able to look at things in the round and see the good, and also it's important to see the negative as well, and not to be so naive to only see the good. Yes, Peter.
No, I was thinking that, comparing the two, but I think on an ethical level, we probably regard Yehuda as a higher level than David, because we're all named after Yehuda. We're Yehudim. We're not Davidim or Yosefim or something. Why Dafka was Yehuda? We know that did a couple of terrible things, but in the end, he admitted his guilt and he recovered from his guilt, and we're all named after him.
Okay, so we've touched on admitting guilt, and that is the important part. I agree with you personally. I think that David's sin was greater than Yehuda's. Yehuda admitted his guilt immediately, whereas David tried to cover his up and actually made his sin far, far worse by having Uriah killed. So I agree. I think there is a big difference between Yehuda and David. Yehuda, I think he's on a much higher level than David. But the reason that David survives as David Melech Israel is that this was an aberration. We've seen already how sensitive David is to other people normally, right? We've seen it. We've seen it how he treated Shaul. We've seen it how he treats his men. This was an aberration. And Leslie and I had a conversation the other day about a situation. And this is what happened to David. David was at this point thinking with the wrong part of his anatomy. Right? David was saw Bathsheba, right? And as many men do. And again, this is an important thing for us to know that we don't believe in saints in Israel. But what he did do afterwards was terrible. But ultimately, he admitted his guilt and said Chatati. We'll come to it in the next chapter. And that is what enables him to survive as the great David HaMelech. As a human being, he was a great human being. He made a massive mistake here. But do we condemn a person whose life has been very, very positive? Think of all the positive things that David HaMelech did on the basis of one aberration. I think there's something to learn from that. No, there is nobody. Ein Adam Baretz asher lo yechta. There's nobody in the world that doesn't sin. Not even Philip. Right? So there's always something. And I think this is a lesson that we can learn, that saying Chatati, genuine regret, it gives us the ability to carry on. Because if we didn't have that ability, then and if we were all condemned by our one sin, albeit it was a biggie, if we were all condemned by our one sin, then there would be very few of us here to continue. So I think that's an important point. Yes, Jackie.
Can I shoot Hannah's theory about being raped? Because it said she went and became his wife. Now, you're a medical man. You know that if a woman's been raped, she certainly wouldn't go near the man that's raped her.
Okay, let me put that. We're out of time. Let me put that on the table for the beginning of next week's shiur, because it's all in the Gemara that we're going to learn next time. We're going to start.
No, we still haven't done it. Yeah. Right.
We're going to start next week, Bezrat Hashem, with the Gemara in Kiddushin 43a and Shabbat 56a. If you don't want a spoiler, then don't look it up. But I've given you enough spoilers already, so you can. Yeah.
I tried to look it up quickly now, but I don't know enough. Parents must be mentioned when they go down to Egypt. because the story of Tamar and Judah happens before we go to Egypt.
Yes.
So they must. The twins must be somewhere. Where are they listed?
They're
I
listed.
tried to look it up now, but I couldn't find the place.
They're definitely listed when we read the children of Yehuda, when we go through the families of Yehuda.
So then Tamar stayed with Yehuda.
No, well, not necessarily. She bore him twins. The twins were brought up by a wet nurse because the twins belonged to Yehuda. They were his sons, and she sent back to her father's house.
Oh, I don't like that. Why were they his sons and not her sons?
Because that's the way it worked in those days, Hannah. She was sent back. That's what it seems. That seems to be the consensus of opinion, is that she was sent back to her father's house. I don't like it either. Right, we're out of time.
He admitted that he was wrong. So why should she be punished because he was wrong?
That's a good question.
He was wrong in not giving her Sheila.
Yeah, and he still didn't give her Sheila.
And he took her children?
We'll see in the... I think so, yeah. I think that's what happened. Yeah.
So, okay.
I'm just having a look where here we go. Here we go. What am I looking here? David, so she turned into her house. Apart from the birth of the two boys, Tamar gained nothing from the entire story. The reality which she faced before the events, remain a widow in your father's house until Shelah, my son, be grown up, continued apparently afterwards as well. And we do not find that Tamar was now given to Shelah or some other man. So the Mefarshim seem to say, as I've said, that Tamar gained nothing from this except to be the mother of these two twins.
Sad ending.
Sad ending. Okay. Sad ending. We will start next week, Bezrat Hashem, with the Gemaras that we mentioned. Kiddushin 43a, Shabbat 56a.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Johnny.